Hello, everyone. Welcome to IB and the CIA. We have Shannon, our guest from California. Welcome, Shannon.
Hi, thank you. My name is Shannon Whalen, and I am an executive coach and entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Get Inspired Fitness, which is a residential fitness company. We provide group fitness classes to residents as an amenity of living there. And as an executive coach, I work with athletes and entrepreneurs to help them set their future selves up for success.
My name is Dan. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm going to be getting to know you along with our guest as we ask you questions and you answer them. The reason we do this podcast is to give our listeners access to people that they may never have come across in everyday life. If we have one overarching principle, it is to help people live their best life, because you may say something. It could just be a story. It could just be an answer to a question. It could just be a life experience you've had that somebody may have heard for the fifth time, or maybe the first time they're hearing it. But whatever it is about you and the way they connect with you might lead them to take a new action or go a new direction. And it could lead them to having an even better life. So we're going to ask you a series of questions that don't seem necessarily related, but they're all about hopefully extracting some great answers and some information that you can share that'll help the listeners. So I'm going to get started with the first question, which is, if I was a genie and I could grant you just one wish, what would be that wish and why? Here are the rules. You can't wish to become the genie or the wish giver, and you can't wish for more wishes. So what is your one wish?
There are rules to the wishes. Okay. So my one wish is that we as humanity could slow down and understand each other so that we could create a more peaceful world. So I feel like saying world peace is my wish is so like broad and generic and overriding, but I really feel like when we can actually slow down and understand where someone's coming from, where their perspective is, without getting our ego or our narrative or our agenda in the way, then we could really make some massive shifts in this world that would make it a better place for all of us.
I love your share because it is about trying to meet someone where they are with no judgment and trying to appreciate them as they show up. And that's harder to do than you realize when you think about when you meet somebody for the first time and your brain is already thinking about, you're already making these little judgments about like their character, what they value, what they're all about. So that's an amazing wish and I love it. What is your biggest failure and what have you learned about it and why?
So I would say my biggest failure was abandoning myself. And that looks like not pursuing my passion, which is dance and music. And that is actually why I love working with people that are in the entertainment industry, because it connects me to the industry that I didn't take a chance on myself for. And so that is my way of like reigniting that within myself and in my life. So that would be the one thing I know that I'm passionate about that I, at 18 years old, sort of walked away from.
I think that aligns well with my next question, which is if you had a time machine, let's say like my favorite movie, Back to the Future, and you could travel anywhere in time, but we want you to travel back in time to visit your younger self. And in visiting your younger self, you could now offer advice based on your experiences and say, hey, do this, think this, know this, whatever that may be. What would be the advice you offer your younger self and why that advice?
That my story matters, to never stop dancing and to tell my story through dance. Because it's really the narrative that I felt like I bought into, which was starving artist, it's hard to make it and all of that. It's like, it's not true. And especially with where we've gone from when I was around 18 years old up until now, it's like that has blown up with the way that social media and like phones and recording everything has expanded. That would have been right in line with what I wanted to do. I would have been able to do, if I had my mindset there to like go after my career and really pursue dance and really be hungry for it and understand what that meant at that time, then I think I could have made a big difference in my life and in other people's lives by sharing that part of myself.
I think that's beautiful that you discovered to stay true to yourself and to resonate with that frequency, because people will be attracted to you and aligned to you based on how you truly show up, your authentic self. And what is a habit that you can share with us that has helped you become the best version of yourself?
So a couple of years ago, I accepted a challenge to do the stair machine at the gym every day for a year. And it sounds like really outrageous, but there was something in me that I knew I needed to do it because I lost trust in myself. And so I figured, what can I commit to that would stretch me so that I would be able to rebuild that trust in myself? And after we got shut down by the pandemic, like the gyms and everything were closed, I started doing other things, but I got off track. Fitness is not something that I struggled to stay in a habit with, but that was something that was really anchoring me into my growth and personal development moving forward from where I had been. And the second the gym opened back up, I got right back on that stair machine like no time had passed. Like mentally, I could tell I was stronger because of the time I had previously put in, and then the mental and like emotional work that I had done during the pandemic. Like I know we're still in it, but like of 2020, let's just call it that. And then when the gym opened back up, it was just like everything came together for me to feel like whole in myself again. Um, Even though like I had found substitutes for things that I needed during that time. But I would say that that habit, because it's physically trying and mentally, because the conversation that can occur when you're like, I'm going to stay here for this amount of time and I'm not going to move. And it's not like I can dance to the music that's going on, which is what I want to do. And so it forces me to really tap into that strength. And I have, when I push myself in an interval, like the conversation I'm having, like, you're strong, you can do this, you're stronger than your mind, you've got this, like just continually telling myself what I need to hear to get through the next like minute or however long the interval is going to be that I'm pushing through.
So I love that. And I'm really big into challenges. In fact, if you could see my whiteboard right next to me, you would see numbers on it. And somebody who just walked in and says, what the heck are these numbers? They're just tracking like streaks, right? So like I'll do something, let's say I'll do this for like one I have right now going, I'll do 70 days in a row of running 1 mile every day, right? So I'm on day 22 right now. So I have 21 days on the board. I haven't done it yet today, but I love that. I just love just some commitment of something going, I'm going to do the following for X period of time. So here's a challenge for you. If you could only have one book for not the rest of your life, in this case, I'm adjusting it, one book for the next year, this would be the only book, but you had to spend at least 10 minutes a day reading this book. What would be the book that you select for that full year?
I would pick A Course in Miracles. I wanted to say A Return to Love, which is the principles on A Course in Miracles, which I've already read like 5 times. And I pick A Course in Miracles because they actually have a 365-day workbook that goes along with it. So it's about a 10-minute read every day, and then you have a workbook and an exercise to go through. And I've started it a few times and I get so far and then I get off track. And I'm like, if I were committing to a book for a year, that would be it. So I know you took the year off the table. Oh no, you didn't take the year off. That's what you put on the table. You said lifetime to year. Yep. So if I was a year, it would be A Course in Miracles to study that and get very integrated into those principles.
Besides the one about love, what other principles resonate with you off that book?
It's really getting anchored into reality as opposed to what we think and assume things are. So it's really taking away, this is my perspective, it's really taking away like all of the ideas and judgments and what we think we know about things in the world. Like even in the first few exercises, it's like, I do not know what this cup is for. I do not know what this chair is for. And just removing all of these assumptions that we have about things and really getting to that point of like, what do we know and where can we be more curious, which then ties back to my initial answer to the question of like, what if we didn't just have all these ideas and think that we were right about everything and could remove all of that and have a conversation from that space with somebody about some of the topics that we tend to get very heated about or disagree about, and be able to find that place of understanding? Because I believe at the core of all of us that we are all just spiritual beings that want to be seen, heard, loved, and understood. Yet everything we get in these tensions and it actually creates the opposite experience for ourselves.
We do. And I feel that part of it has to do with not just the spirit being of ourselves, but the part that where our values and our personalities and what we gravitate towards shape that influence. So, and I can see how there could be like tension in a discussion because of those kind of values. It's just very interesting, especially if you see it amongst our family and friends. And you'll say something just off the cuff and it'll just cause such a strong reaction from somebody else. So speaking of somebody else, who in your life has made the most impact and why?
A friend of mine, her name is Shannon. She is a Reiki master and a spiritual healer, and she really introduced me to a lot of the things that opened up my world to seeing things differently. And she's one of the people that I know and trust, that I can come to her and say anything and feel accepted and not judged and not misunderstood or less than for anything that I have to bring to the table. And her willingness to continue to go up to bat in her life, to continue to grow and to look at herself and evolve, just inspires me to continue on that path in my life as well.
I just ordered A Course in Miracles, literally.
Yes.
I just went on my phone. I looked up, I do audiobooks. I looked that up first, but I realized this is probably not good in audiobook format. So I ordered the real book. And so, no, I'm excited. I've heard more than one person say that. So I'm interested to see what it's all about.
I would recommend A Return to Love as the audiobook, but A Course in Miracles, it's like, I compare it to like a spiritual version of a different Bible almost. Like even in the paper, it feels like the paper that's in the Bible. It's interesting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So in your profession, are you going to call your profession coaching? Would that be your profession? Okay.
Yep.
So in your profession of coaching, do you hear stuff that you think, oh, I don't know if that's good advice, like people should avoid that, or maybe that's like a too big of a promise, or right? Or it's like not the best thing for people to be like focused on. What would be some advice you'd try to like steer people away from in your profession?
There's definitely different kinds of coaches out there. The way that I'm trained to coach, it's not giving advice. It's really helping people to come to their own answers that they have within themselves and speaking their own truth. So I would advise people to trust their own gut instincts and to not question so much like what it is that they want. When someone says, what is it that you want? Like the first thing that comes to mind, like why there's a block or fear in so many people of just saying whatever that thing is or whatever that life looks like. I would like to invite people just to go for it, because I think it's not only going to make their lives better, it's the impact that it makes for the rest of us, because we're all connected. We're all, we all have an impact on each other. And when we take ownership of that, I think that's just, again, when we can have the more cohesive world that I desire.
That's beautiful. That just resonates with people who they want approval, and they're going to answer or show up in the way that they feel would validate that approval, that acceptance. And so more people struggle with this than they want to admit. It's just to really be honest about how they feel about something, or be honest about the reality, right? Because sometimes it's like knowing the difference between, I don't like how somebody does something, but is it really my thought about what I think about it, not really that person doing something? And that's a distinction right there. And it just could be something that drives you up the wall, but it does, it's just because of the story you have around it. And to dive deeper into that, it's like learning how to let go of not letting anyone's opinion affect what you want to do and how you want to show up. I think a lot of times we hold ourselves back from pursuing our dreams, pursuing what's placed in our heart, what we feel, that what's our gut instinct, to go with that, because we're afraid of the rejection and the failure or whatever else that we may be struggling with. What is the big surprise that you learned about yourself in the last year, and why?
I realized about myself how much I discount what experiences I have and how they hold value for other people. I found out that I'm a very easy person to talk to, but that not returning or reciprocating that, where people would share a lot and open up to me a lot. And that's a space I hold as a coach, right? Like I hold the space for you to come and talk to me. And then I noticed in relationships that was coming in the same way, where it was just, I was holding a space for my friends. And then they're like, well, what's going on with you? And I'm like, I'm fine. Everything's great. And it wasn't. So whether it was avoiding or it was just me being comfortable in, being able to hold that for them in whatever my blocks were of like lack of trust or fear of vulnerability, but when I have now leaned into that because it was pointed out to me and I've shared more, it's actually created a deeper connection with people. And like as we were talking about earlier, the way I say something or relate to something could land with somebody else, even though they might have heard it 5 to 7 times before. There's something different about either in the positioning or the language that somebody uses, or the type of experience that might make it make more sense than where somebody else says it. Similar thing in a different way. So really opening that part of myself up in a way that I can help other people to connect to themselves even is something that I learned over the last year of, because I live alone. So when I was in quarantine, I was alone a lot. So I had a lot of time to learn about myself. And so I would say that was the biggest lesson.
So Shannon, is there an area of your life that you wanted to share that we haven't yet talked about?
One of the areas of my life that I think has made the biggest impact over the last few years is when I realized that I had an allergy to alcohol and how that was impacting my life and what that journey was like walking away from that as it's so ingrained in society. And it was an interesting thing and a huge shift in my life because it went from, just being casual, normal, going out and doing all the things that everybody does to not going out as much because I didn't want to put myself in those situations as I was stepping away from that part of myself. And it has so dramatically changed my life. And the fact that I can step back and see how much alcohol specifically is marketed to society. Like, if you're happy, celebrate. If you're sad, or I'm sorry, if you're happy, drink. If you're sad, drink. If you're bored, drink. And what that's doing actually to humanity. There's a great book called Sober Curious that I read that I was really into. There's another one that I would have to look up and share with you guys later that I've been referred to as well, but I can't remember the name of it. And just like opening our eyes to what is really there and what's really going on a bigger level of like, why is it so pushed on society, but then on the micro level as well, like why are you making that choice for yourself and not just getting into the routine of, oh, I have this glass of wine or whiskey or whatever every night. When it becomes an every night thing, it, like, my mind goes, okay, that's interesting. What is it that you need that for? I think a lot of people are just like so used to that being like the norm that there's no question. And no shame, no guilt, no judgment. It's just like, what is that actually doing for you? Why is that your choice? And how is that affecting your life? Because I think there's a disconnect on the effects of alcohol, because there's usually a very narrow gap between the time that I'm speaking in broad statements, obviously, but there's a narrow gap on the general public where there is not alcohol in your system, because it actually takes like 3 to 4 days to leave your system. So if you think, oh, you went to brunch on Sunday and then Thursday night you're going to happy hour, you have not actually experienced what your body feels like completely sober.
When you say you had an allergy, what does that mean?
Okay, so I would get extremely depressed, and it was only connected to alcohol, and it only happened if, like, it didn't matter how much I drank. I would be on my couch, like, in tears, like the world was ending, and nothing had changed other than the fact that alcohol was in my system, and my entire judgment and my perspective was totally clouded. And it's an interesting experience I've had before in other circumstances. I'm very sensitive to like any antibiotics, medications, and all that. So it didn't really come as a surprise to me when it was pointed out. I tested it. Sure enough, like 3 days later, I'm like, oh, the world is ending. I hate my life. Everything, nothing changes. And it's almost as if it's like this voice behind like myself that's just like gotten a hold of my thoughts and my mind and my brain. Now, if it happens by any chance for any reason, like if I have to take a medication, I'm aware of it, that I can just sort of ride the wave and not like engage or not really get too wrapped up in the stories or whatever's going on. And I have more tools and resources to help me not, again, like just get caught into it. But that's what it was for me. It's just, I'm very sensitive to substances.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that your program that you want to share to help people realize that, understand what it means to them and why they do something, especially related to alcohol, it's going to really benefit those that struggle with it, those have hate to admit they have an addiction. I know that at one point I struggled with it just because of my profession as a consultant.
Hmm.
Deloitte's, you know what that's like. It's just a bad situation. But that aside, this is my last question. What is one superpower that you wish you had, and what would it be?
I wish I could remove the fear that people had of like accessing and experiencing their emotions in order to heal. Because I can't do it for them and I don't want to, because I think that takes away from their experience and their what they're here to evolve for. I just wish I could help remove that, yeah, whatever the block is, from just going in and understanding like you're going to come out and feel better afterwards, rather than acting from that space and like accepting this level of despair and like as a baseline of existing, as opposed to really getting from that experience, feeling the pain, healing it, and then experiencing joy and freedom and living a life that is on your terms, and that you can actually feel like that, we don't have to only suffer here. Suffering is a part of the human experience, but it's not the only thing here that we're sent to do and or be. I think we're here to be free and grow and evolve and become the highest versions of ourselves. And I think that we do that through processing and accessing the pain and learning and growing from it.
So those of you out there who listen to Shannon or story or what she's all about, and you're interested in connecting with her, what's the best way for people to do that? And do you have any sort of offering or something that people could reach out to you for?
Absolutely. So I'll say Instagram is a great way, an easy way to access me. It's Shannon Lee Whalen. So that's Shannon and then Lee, Whalen, like whale, like the animal with an N at the end. If you direct message me, I check my message requests frequently just to make sure I'm not missing anything. So that's a great way to engage with me. And yes, I do have an offer. I am launching a program and it's at a 50% discount. So I have it for a specific amount of people that are coming in at that rate. And once it's full, it's going up to full rate. And that is going to be going through how to crush your goals that you have set in your life without sacrificing any area of your life that is most important to you. So we're all about balance here and living the life that you want. You can take a look at that at shannonleewhalen.com, or if you want to message me on Instagram, I can send you more information about it as well.
I love it. Thank you so much, Shannon. It was a pleasure having you on our podcast. And if there's any last advice you want to share with our audience before we wrap up, go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful. It was a pleasure speaking with both of you. And my last message for our listeners is trust yourself, and you deserve to live the life that you desire.